Hello, everyone. Welcome to another interview session here in the PAMI Code Facebook community, the purposeful conversations with Emmy. Now, if you've been feeling a little bit down lately because of what's going on around us, maybe you've been in isolation for quite a while now. I've got someone special today to lift up our spirits with a very inspiring and motivational story to share with us today. So today we are joined by a holistic mindset coach and Reiki master, Cara Michelle. Hi, Cara. Warmest welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful to be here.
I'm so grateful that you've come and joined us as well. I mean, I found you on a Facebook group and I reached out to you because your story is quite something. You have quite an interesting and inspiring story. But for those, for our viewers right now who haven't got a clue who you are, tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, and what do you do?
Yeah, of course. I'm from Canada and I have always been really passionate about kind of psychology and the mind and personal development. And in my own life, like the biggest changes for me came through the biggest struggles, and they really were like the catalyst to move forward. And it all started for me when I was 18. My brother passed away and he had an allergic reaction to a prescription drug. And then a few years after that, I was sexually assaulted. And then I had this really traumatic car accident when I was driving across Canada one winter. And um, it just, throughout those times, I kind of felt like kept being pushed to find a purpose and a meaning and something more to life than just the struggle. And so it was in that darkness that I decided to travel. I decided to work with different like coaches and different healers and really dive into as many methods as I could to find a way through.
Yes, from my previous conversations, I've noticed that a lot of healers and coaches actually have been through a deep struggle, which prompted them to think about their life's purpose and also helping others to recover from whatever struggle that they are facing. In terms of your case, did you get to a point where you feel as if you just hit rock bottom, or did you feel as if your life was just a constant struggle? It's just one struggle after another? And how did you, I don't know, snap out of it? I don't know if that's even the word I'm looking for, but how did you shift from just living from one struggle to another, just looking at life as if it's just all about struggle, to what you are doing now?
Yeah, I think for me, I kind of felt like, yeah, it just was like one thing after another, and I'd start to see maybe a little bit of a light through the clouds, and then there was something else that kind of hit me. And um, I just, I don't know if there necessarily was like a big rock bottom moment, but it was just kind of like a compound effect of going, like, this is not comfortable, and I really don't want to stay in this place. And I just the way I started to see it was like the more I focus on the struggle and the more I stay in this negative space, the worse I obviously feel. Whereas if I can find a way to feel a little bit better, even if it's temporarily, at least that's going to help bring some of that momentum forward. So it was kind of like that whole glass half full or glass half empty kind of mindset around, yes, this is a lot to deal with, and yes, it's heavy, but I don't want to stay negative for the rest of my life, and I don't want to stay stuck, um, and let this really dictate the next like 50 years or 60 years of my life.
Yes, I from what I can sense, it's almost as if you've made a conscious decision not to focus on the struggle anymore, because there's this saying in the in positive psychology, energy, what is it? Energy flows where attention goes. And if you're actually focusing so much on the struggle, you actually see that again and again and again because your attention is going there. So it seems to me that you've had this shift. You've made a conscious decision to actually shift, and focus on perhaps what's going. What were the initial steps when you initially decided that, okay, this is this is not how I want to live my life anymore? That you can actually do something about it. What were the initial first steps that you took when you've made that decision to shift your life?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely started just with like reading books and expanding kind of my horizons in that way around like looking for different tools and diving in. I really started to dive into spirituality at that time, and I had always been kind of interested in Eastern teachings but never really spent the time on them. And I also had always had this big passion to travel, and I had done some traveling beforehand and just felt like, we learned so much from this experience and getting to see other cultures and see how other people live. And I think when I started to travel more, it also was very humbling because we do get to see um, like the differences around the world and how people live. And some of the kindest, most loving, and caring people that I met had very little in terms of material things, but they were the happiest people,
Mm.
right? And it really showed how your mindset is everything and how you show up in the world. Really, that's what matters.
Right. So the traveling actually did help you, and you started reading about I've seen that you're a Reiki master and a holistic mindset coach. What does that mean?
Yeah, so I mean, Reiki is a type of energy work, right? And so that's something I'm very passionate about, and I've had some amazing experiences working with energy that definitely keep me pulled into that. And then in terms of like the mindset coaching, I'm a certified mindfulness and a meditation teacher, and I'm also a certified holistic life coach, and I really am always looking for ways that we can naturally heal. And um, more often than not, that comes to creating a lot of awareness and really uncovering our own beliefs and the root cause of the problems. Whereas I do think in the Western world, quite often we just want to have this quick fix or
Mm.
bottle something up, or we get prescribed something by a doctor that's going to help with our anxiety or our pain. But really, if you don't do the deeper work to release it, it's still there under the surface. So I really like to help people actually do that work and let go of it once and for all.
Right. Because you've mentioned this thing about letting go, I think that's where a lot of people struggle with. So, for example, in your case, you've experienced abuse, you've experienced trauma. I know that there are people who hold on to the trauma and hold on to the anger and, sometimes the guilt as well, in terms of they are blaming themselves for whatever it
Mhm.
is that happened to them. How do you let that go? What does the process look like for you?
Yeah, I think I couldn't agree more. I think that is a big thing that, and we, whether we consciously realize it or whether it's subconscious, we do tend to hold on to these things. And what I've also seen in my own life and in other people's lives is how much that creates more patterns because you're still carrying that energy and that trauma.
It's a
So you're
burden,
gonna,
isn't it?
yeah, it's weighing down on you, and then it's kind of drawing in more people who are in that same energy. So sometimes then it happens again. And the biggest thing for that is definitely the awareness and uncovering like some of the deeper root beliefs and the blocks that you have around that. And more often than not, it's tied into feeling unworthy, like feeling like I'm not good enough. And so then we start to tell that story more. We start to think we deserve those things or we'll never get anything better. It's all from that unworthiness. And a lot of times that also stems from childhood, and just it could be the simplest thing that happens in our childhood, but to our child mind, it's really traumatic and makes us feel like we're not good enough, and it's something that we have kind of clung to and believed for a long time. And so I think I mean, I talk about awareness all the time because I just think the more aware you are about your thoughts and the things that are going on for you, the more you can actually discover what's happening. Um, and then in terms of releasing, like there's so many different methods, whether it's meditation, whether it is Reiki or different energy work, working with the chakras. There's just so many. Even just journaling is a great way to get things out and onto paper versus storing it and bottling it up. So a lot of different ways, dancing, movement. Yeah.
I absolutely agree with you. I mean, in my books, I talk about these inner critic messages. Some people call it the inner child, and, all these
Mhm.
thoughts that you might be holding in your head. There are some people who would ask you to suppress it or fight it or have a battle with it. But for me, first of all, it's about becoming aware that these thoughts exist, because once you are
Mhm.
aware and that you acknowledge that these exist, then you can actually explore where these are coming from and what you can do about it. And oftentimes these inner critic messages that we have, you might be surprised that they are usually untrue,
Mhm.
illogical, and destructive. So one of the things that I teach in my books, I use the TLC questioning sequence. It's not tender loving care, but it's about looking at your inner critic messages, exploring your inner critic messages, and asking, is it true? Is it logical? Is it constructive? Because more often
Mhm.
than not, these are lies that we have been holding on for a long time, irrational thoughts and destructive thoughts that are holding us back. And for some people, they have been holding on to these thoughts for so long that they believed it to be true. And that's why it's actually quite useful to get it out. Whether it is to work with a mentor, a coach, or writing it, just to see it from outside of your head,
Mhm.
and exploring whether these are true, logical, or constructive. But with your clients, Michelle, what sort of strategies do you usually use with your clients, or what's your favorite strategies in terms of becoming more aware of your inner critic messages and releasing it?
Yeah, firstly, I just wanna say I love the TLC. That's perfect. Um, that's so great, and it's totally true, how those thoughts can work, so, I'm gonna hang on to that.
I love that. I mean, when I work with my clients, every time I teach them the TLC technique, it's like there's like a light bulb moment. It's like,
Yeah.
I've never thought of that before. And when I ask them the question, is it true? Like they would say something like, I'm a failure. Everything that I do, it all goes wrong. And then I would ask, is it true? Really, you haven't done
Mhm.
anything right in your life? If you
Yeah.
can think of one thing that's gone right in your life, and they would think like, huh. It's
Mhm.
it's a lie. So
Yeah.
it just makes you pause and think why you are saying these things, why you are holding on to it, because more like usually it's untrue, it's
Mhm.
illogical and destructive. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think even, as you said that, I know, like, I used to have so many insecurities, and if I were to think about, like, even one thing I loved about myself, it would have been so hard for me to come up with that because my mind and the story, I was always focused on all the things I thought were wrong or not good enough. And I remember like having kind of a light bulb moment like that too of just going like, do I really like is there really not one good thing about me that I can't think about or celebrate? And it really helped me like click and see like how destructive my thoughts had been all these years by keeping me focused on all the negative. So, yeah, that's powerful for sure when we get to realize that we can create a new story for ourselves and that the story we've been telling most likely isn't true even in the slightest.
Yeah, and yeah, you are right. In changing the narrative, changing the perspective, it actually does make a difference the way you see things. Instead of
Mm-hmm.
just looking at that one little flaw, when you actually embrace the goodness and recognize and be grateful for the goodness in your life, and it gets magnified. And the more you pay attention to these good things, the more you notice them. And I,
Mm-hmm.
I have to say I've experienced this myself. After I gave birth to my son, I did experience postnatal depression. So I've been on that dark side as well. And it can just spiral out of control when you just keep focusing on the negative things, and on the
Mm-hmm.
on how it's a struggle, and so on. But when I've made the shift, when I started looking for the good things, they just kept, they were magnified, and they were, you just keep noticing them over and over again, because your attention goes there, and you celebrate it, and you show gratitude, and they just keep multiplying as a result of that. So in your
Mm-hmm.
case, Kara, is that something that you also help your clients with? Is that one of the strategies that you also apply?
Yeah, yeah. So one of the biggest thing I usually focus on, um, the way I kind of have structured my coaching and my process is like a three-step process, and it's really about the past as step one, and then the present as step two, and the future as step three. And I think where a lot of people get stuck is they're trying to fix the present right now by doing positive affirmations or something, or they're trying to visualize the future and what they want to create. But if they haven't released the past and let go of those old beliefs, the struggles, the stories, the heavy weight of all of that, if they don't do that first step, then it's so much harder to kind of move your life in the direction that you're trying to do. So always the first step when I'm working with my clients is really like getting clear on those blocks and breaking down where they stemmed from, and looking for patterns, looking at ways that they're showing up in their life, and creating, like you said, kind of seeing that these things aren't true or they don't need to hold as much weight as they have, creating that new story, um, combining meditation as well as some different energy work and tools like that to kind of clear that all out, so that then they have this clean slate to build upon in a new way.
Yeah, and it just makes it easier to move forward. And you are right. You already mentioned it earlier. You start from the awareness, really, because when
Mm-hmm.
you become aware of these blocks, then you can actually do something about it. So as you progress into your future, it's lighter, it's easier to move on, because you've let go of whatever it is that's, burdening you from the past. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Kara, if people would like to reach out, if they would like to connect with you, where can they find you?
Yeah. So on Facebook, I have a Facebook page. It's if you search, it's like facebook.com/real Kara Michelle. That's also my Instagram. So real KARAMICHELLE. And on YouTube as well, YouTube/Kara Michelle or karamichelle.co.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very
Mm-hmm.
much for joining us today. And to everyone who's watching this video right now, yeah, if you are feeling as if you are still struggling, if you feel that life is such a burden, you need to have a shift. From what I've noticed with Kara, it does take a conscious decision and commitment to
Mm-hmm.
actually make that shift. And you can do it gradually. Taking little steps, being aware of what's weighing you down, and learning how to let it go. It might not be easy, because, for some of you, it
Mm-hmm.
might be a comfort blanket, right? You've been holding
Yeah.
on to these thoughts for so long. But if you actually do want to make a shift, make a conscious decision to make that shift, be aware of the beliefs that you are holding on to, and then apply some strategies like, gratitude and recognizing the good things in your life, work through these beliefs, and you can make that transition eventually as well. So thank you
Mm-hmm.
again, Karen. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Until then, we'll catch up again next time for another purposeful conversation here in the PAMI Code Facebook group. Until then, take care and bye for now.
Mm-hmm.
Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you so
Bye.
much. Bye.
Bye.